Ladies and gentlemen, the motion that we have today is that this House believes that scholarships should only be granted on the basis of financial necessity. Education, while a core part that has been essential to the development and advancement of the human race, has long been classified as a privilege instead of a right, one that could only be accessed by affluents, royals, and aristocrats. However, with recent laws making it easier for members of the working class to get access to higher education, more and more of the population can now find themselves achieving more social mobility. However, sadly, we still find ourselves in a position where there are still people who cannot afford such scholarships to which scholarships. Several educational institutions have held programs such as financial-based scholarships to which students can apply to if they do not meet a certain economic threshold. Some clarifications before we move on to the arguments. Our side of the house is not saying that applicants who apply to financial-based scholarships cannot have merits or any awards at all. In fact, we are saying the exact opposite. The function of financial scholarships in the first place is to give students more opportunities to earn merit in the first place. Secondly, financial scholarships exist in the first place because of financial situations and cases of more students who we will assume to be a majority, which are minors or underage, that they have no part in controlling. To these students, you can have all the determination, the passion, the willingness, everything that everyone says that will be the key to ensuring success in the future, and still fall short behind because you cannot get access to notebooks to write down what you learn. You cannot learn anything in situations such as these, such as online learning, because you can't access to a phone or a laptop and so forth. Therefore, by giving students financial scholarships, this gives educational institutions a mechanism to weed out the students who are truly passionate from the others, and thus can be a more determining factor rather than merit-based scholarships. Through financial scholarships, students are now given control of their lives and thus the control to shape their own destiny. Ladies and gentlemen, we want you to put yourselves in the shoes of an applicant who is applying because their family does not have the means to achieve higher education or to send you to even a higher level of school. Imagine that the only way for you to achieve an education, to finally put your family out of the financial misery it's been experiencing, being cut off because you didn't have the means to earn quote-unquote eligible merits in the first place. Imagine that you've tried so hard despite the conditions around you, only to have that one golden key being taken away by another person who has the means of getting into an educational institution even without a scholarship. To begin, let's start with a case study. A is a student who has talent in basketball but severely needs financial aid. A has grown their love in basketball but cannot access the necessarily facilities such as fields, playing balls, and other facilities to grow their talents even more. Compare this to student B, who comes from an affluent family and also has a talent in basketball. B comes from an affluent family that supports B's talent in basketball and thus funds B's hobbies. Subsequently, B is able to access more high-end equipment, hire coaches to perfect their play, watch professional basketball games, etc. They both want to apply with a school with a notable basketball team. Through a merit-based system, B would be the one that would be accepted even though both the students have the same amount of potential in them. Schools, as a place for students to grow and develop to their fullest, should facilitate this. Through a financial-based scholarship, A can have access to more high-end equipment, high-end facilities, and who knows, possibly become even better than B in the future. Through these financial-based scholarships, if A is able to get in, A and B are now at a similar standing and now have the same chances to grow to their full potential. Merit-based scholarships, on the other hand, can only depend on the financial ability of the people applying from them and subsequently cannot be equally spread out towards people of all social classes and students experiencing less than ideal conditions. Two students may just be as bright as the other, but maybe one is in an abusive household, or maybe one cannot have access to facilities such as earlier, maybe struggling with medical problems or other things that prevent them from growing to their full potential. Compare this with a student who lives in a harmonious household that has no major disturbances in achieving academic success, and the root of unfairness makes itself clear immediately. Through financial-based scholarships, these students can now find themselves on an even pedestal and thus secure the same chances at success both before they graduate and after they graduate. And secondly, our third argument is the educational system that is currently operating now picks and chooses what merits they value and does not put all merits on equal standing. For example, you rarely see people being accepted into high-caliber schools such as Harvard, Yale, Stanford, or possibly in Indonesia, we have Universitas Indonesia, UGM, and other schools for gaming championships, for example, even though it is just as an eligible merit as others hobbies such as research, basketball, etc. The bitter truth is that, frankly, the merit-based scholarship system still underestimates exceptional skills in fields that they believe to have negative connotations. This puts students who have those exceptional skills I mentioned earlier, albeit in sort of niche fields such as gaming, at a disadvantage, and does not allow for students who might have a change of heart, for example. I want you to recall the study of A and B that I said earlier. Even though both are talented in basketball, they recognize job opportunities in basketball may not be as economically fulfilling and apply to the school science program. The school science program, even though B is an accomplished player, would not be accepted because, of course, people from the science department will look down on their talents in basketball, often associated with ghetto and hood connotations. Not to mention, with financial-based scholarships also mean a greater chance at diversifying the future. A majority of people who apply to such scholarships are people from marginalized communities who are generally poorer. This would mean that we have a large chance at introducing new voices and new perspective into future workforces, and thus make the world a fairer and more just place for those marginalized people earlier who often have to suffer the consequences of racism and xenophobia, etc. While the opposition may say that merit-based scholarships are there to keep a school's reputation, we would like to point out the errors in this type of reasoning. If they do so, then the opposition will think then that it is the school who gives the students a good name because reputation precedes the student, etc., and thus later give them perks when applying for jobs and more higher paying jobs, for example. But shouldn't it be the other way around, in which the students give their school the good name? The opposition's reasoning of merit-based scholarships and reputation ties tie deeply with static ties in educational institutions, which seeks to keep things the way they are, which are still flawed and can be perfected again. Through financial-based scholarships, people that were previously on the bottom rung of the ladder now can find themselves climbing upward, bringing the whole world with them. We are proud to propose. Thank you very much.